You're still doing the news intro, though, right, Matt?
I can do the news intro and then throw it to you.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just for consistency.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh, crap.
dun,
Can
dun,
people see what we
dun,
chat
dun,
to each other?
dun. Pickles equals penis.
Well, we are live right now.
Okay, Jake, there you go.
I don't know, I'm texting on my phone, not on the computer.
But it's more fun to do it there.
Oh, we
All
are
right,
live.
ready?
Okay.
Let's
All right,
go.
whenever you're ready, silence.
Don't forget
Yeah.
about the break,
Yeah.
Matt, for music, remember?
Of course.
Get the pickles. Get the pickles. Get the pickles with the sauce.
Okay, here we go. Hello, listeners and viewers on YouTube right now. It is Monday, and that means it's another episode of the Metal Rock and Whiskey News. What's up, guys?
Hey, Matt.
What's up, buddy?
How's everyone doing?
Well, I'm
Well,
just hanging out with my good friends here, so doing
All
pretty
right.
good. Pretty good.
Awesome.
Sad.
Yes.
Yeah, a little sad. That's
Yeah.
true.
Sad.
Yeah, we had it's been a well, Sailor will explain, but it's been a pretty rough day, unfortunately, because we lost somebody else today. So I'm going to give it to Sailor to start this conversation.
Well, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to one of our whiskey heroes a few weeks ago, and that was Dave Pickerel, and that was a rough one as well. And today we had to say goodbye to one of our, I don't even want to say comic book heroes because it's so much broader than that.
Maybe
One of our
entertainment. Yeah.
Cultural icon heroes,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Mhm.
And we're saying goodbye to Stan Lee today, who passed away at the amazing age of 95. I'm not sad for him. He lived a phenomenal life, and he was a very happy person, and was able to see some amazing things happen to his own creations. I'm sad for me. I want to preface this whole discussion by saying one thing. I've seen a lot of negativity today on social media. You know, oh, you didn't even know the guy. Why are you sad? Oh, everybody's got to jump on the bandwagon. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I'm going to speak for myself. Number one, I deal with loss and death in the way that I deal with it. And that's my right. And no one else can determine that for me. I'm going to feel what I feel and fuck anyone who doesn't agree with it. For me, I have a connection to, I'm not telling anyone else how to feel about it or how to deal with it, just me. I have a connection to Stan Lee for multiple reasons. One thing is I didn't grow up with a dad in my home. So a lot of my father figures, a lot of the, strong, all-powerful men figures, that little girls look for in the world come from outside places. They came in the form of my grandfathers. They came in the form of my uncles. They came in the form of entertainers, musicians, authors. And I was an inquisitive kid, and I was a creative kid, and I was also nerdy. I was also weird as shit. I also felt like I was an ugly kid. I felt like I didn't belong and I didn't fit in. And this is a common theme with unfortunately most human beings. This is our experience often. Stan Lee was one of the people who helped me to feel that it was okay to be weird. It was okay to be strange. It was okay to be unusual. And sometimes the things that made us weird, that other people made fun of, were our superpowers. That is a hell of a thing to hand to a child. That is a hell of a thing to hand to a little girl growing up in the 1970s. He was also a man who fought oppression, fascism, racism, who embraced diversity, and was a superhero himself in that realm. And that was also very important to me. I grew up in New York City in a melting pot. I came from a Greek family. There were times in my life as a child that I was made fun of for having curly hair and hairy legs and eating weird food and not looking like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, And my grandparents had accents, and I that was something that I carried with me. So these are all the reasons for me personally Stan Lee is so important, and I know that there are so many other people that feel similar to myself in this respect. Also, growing up in the 1970s and 80s was a really interesting time for superheroes in general. I was a huge comic book kid. I grew up watching Batman on reruns, the TV show. Wonder Woman was a TV show that I, sat with bated breath and waited for and was obsessed with. Also, The Incredible Hulk was a TV show on at the time. The Amazing Spider-Man was a TV show. We had the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. And we had the Spider-Man cartoon, which was my absolute favorite. I was obsessed with it. I couldn't wait to get home from school. I would run off the bus, throw my metal Wonder Woman lunchbox across the kitchen, and sit down in front of the TV. And it was first the reruns of the Batman show, and then the Spider-Man cartoon would come on. Spider-Man.
Spider Pig. That's whatever Spider Pig does.
So this was. So the creations of Stan Lee are very important to me and were a huge part of my childhood. And then in the late 1970s, it could have been 79 or 1980. I think it was 79. I actually got to see him in person. It was not at a Comic-Con or anything like that. He was actually speaking. I'm pretty little at the time. I'm not 8 years old yet. So I was probably 6 or 7. It was a group of children. We would always go to this specific cool bookstore, which I cannot remember the name of, in Manhattan. And they had this amazing story time. And then right next to it was something with an auditorium. I can't remember what the hell it was. And often they would have like big readings there. I think it was an author that the crowd wouldn't fit in the bookstore. You know what I mean? So it was Stan Lee, and there were 2 other authors there. And I went, and I remember I didn't know who he was at first until he explained, that what he created. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Spider-Man guy. And that's what I called him, the Spider-Man guy. I was like, it's the Spider-Man guy. But the way he spoke to us little children was, as an adult now, fucking amazing. He connected with these 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Like, we were tiny. And he said the coolest things to us. He said, everybody is the same. We're all human. Like, just talking to us about diversity and all of this stuff and equality. Like, what the fuck? Who gets to do that and kept us? We were all probably drooling. We couldn't even remember to swallow or blink, while we're watching this guy. I just remember the room was total silence, and these are fidgety little children. It was amazing. I did get to see him again later in life at a Comic-Con. And once again, I didn't opt for the fucking picture. I paid the money, but I said, I don't want to waste the time just standing next to him, taking a picture with him. I wanted to tell him what he meant to me. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I unfortunately never had a chance to meet Stan Lee, but of course was a huge fan of his growing up, as I did back in the in the 70s and 80s. Those were that was my comic book period. And it was probably, once a month or so, we would go run over to our local 7-Eleven, get on our bikes, run right over to the 7-Eleven, and for all the new comic book releases and stuff. And we'd go in there, and they had them at the time. They had like these packs of like 3 comic books in a pack, and
I remember that. Yes.
I would always go for the Marvel ones.
Yep.
Either go for like Thor, Iron Man, Spider-Man, or like Fantastic Four. Of course, all Stan Lee comics. And you would get, there'd be like a mystery one in there or 2 that you wouldn't know what you got until you opened it up and pulled them out. Which was cool. And I'm looking back now, and they're the cover price of them are like 60 cents. Each was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I a problem like, well, this, I could go on a whole rant about the comic book industry
Oh,
and how
seriously.
they're not catering to little kids anymore. They're catering to adults who collect comics. I think
Or
more than
kids that were
anything.
impoverished. That was really
Yeah.
important to him. He wanted the poor kids to be able to have
Sure.
access to these comics.
Yeah, because
That was
they were
very
very accessible. I could go and take a little of my allowance money and go out and buy, 3 or 4 comics at a time if I wanted to. Now, if I wanted to buy 3 or 4 comics at a time, new ones, I'd be dropping a $20 bill. It's crazy.
Yep.
But anyway, so yeah, Stanley, he was like, if you asked me to name a comic book author, I'd be able to tell you Stan Lee, but that'd be about it. Because that was my main author I would read growing up. So yeah, big loss for sure.
Yeah, I was never, for me anyway, unlike you guys, I was never big into the comics, having grown up in a different time. But, we did buy comics occasionally. My brother was big into horror comics, not necessarily the superhero stuff. But I do remember actually buying a Silver Surfer comic because there was something about that character that was really interesting to me.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then I saw what they did with him in the movie, and I was kind of disappointed. But that's a different conversation.
Joe Satriani's album.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed with that. But what's amazing to me about him, and then just one of the first thoughts I had, and my wife and I were actually watching Ant-Man and the Wasp last night. Kind of ironically, we were watching that, and then this news breaks today. So just very, very sad. And for the longest time, for decades, the man was. Just to bring this into a newer light, the man was the name on the front of a comic book for the longest time. Maybe no one, unless they were a real hardcore fan, could pick him out of a crowd. They didn't know what he looked like. Within the last 10 years or so, making all these cameos and being at the forefront of the transition of his characters to the big screen, everyone can pick him out. Everyone knows what he looks like. He's famous for his cameos. And my son's 3 years old. He's a huge Avengers fan. He probably doesn't understand anything that's going on in the movies, but he loves the characters. And I'm really looking forward to one day explaining to him the cameos of Stan Lee in those movies and explaining that he's the guy that created all of this.
Yeah.
It's just, and to me, that made him, as popular as his characters were, that made him a star being in these movies. Mm-hmm. It could put a face to the man, to the creativity, to everything. And, we talk about, as a kid, when you have a comic book and you love these characters, you need to get lost sometimes. You need to get away from whatever reality is that you live in, whether it's school, you need to escape school, maybe you're getting bullied or something like that, and you can escape into these stories, into these characters. And, honestly, with these movies, I think it's the same for adults too. Adults, can go to the movies. They can have a good time on the couch with their family watching these characters. And I think that there's parts of all these characters that are relatable in a human, in a regular everyday sense as well. And I think that's what's so amazing about him and his creativity. And it's just a huge chasm that will never be filled, unfortunately. Very sad.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, for me, I'm probably, Sailor, as you described, your experience and the way that you are receiving, from an emotional standpoint. I'm probably the opposite. I'm not that I would ever tell you to not feel the way you feel. You should just feel the way you feel, and that's it. But I mean, I heard Stanley passed away, and I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer. But I mean, guys had a hell of a life, and he's been playing with house money for how many years now? And I mean, he's still been, involved to the extent that, tongue in cheek with the cameos is that he was always kind of labeled like a shameless self-promoter, because he would always kind of put himself in the different shows and everything. So that's kind of the tongue in cheek of him doing these cameos. Of course, there's always the, for the MCU stuff, Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the lay person out there. One of the beautiful things that that Stan Lee and the guys, when they did the Marvel universe pre, film, excuse me, is that they put the characters in a universe so that these different characters could, join up together, fight different villains together, do all this kind of stuff. And then when they started bringing the film universe together, really, since we can go on a really long conversation of how this all came together, but really since Iron Man 1 is when the current MCU kicked off. and his character is kind of known in the inside as one of the Watchers, or at least that's the idea, is that is that he's one of the Watchers. And I found that was, to me, how I received it today, the irony of him now being a Watcher for real. And I talked to my daughter this is kind of something, I grew up, and the X-Men cartoon that came on Sunday mornings was like my favorite cartoon to watch. And my best friend lived across the street, and he was Catholic, so his family went to church on Saturday nights. And when I was a kid, when I was at that age, we didn't go to church. And so Sunday mornings, I'd run across the street in my pajamas and eat breakfast with his family, and we would watch the X-Men cartoon, and my mom would just tell me just be home by lunch. And so we'd watch the X-Men cartoon, of course, play pretending to be X-Men for about 40 minutes, and then I'd run back home and put my clothes on, have lunch, and then usually just go back outside and play the rest of the day. But that was my introduction. Not that, at that age, and this was, let's see, I think that I want to say that was probably 90, 91, 92, right in there. But not like I had any idea who Stan Lee was at that age. And really, I mean, up until, I don't know, probably once the MCU got really big, because I can't for the life of me sit down to read. I've never been the kind of person that can sit down and read a comic or a book to save my life. But, I can watch a movie and recite it back to you almost line by line the first time I see it in a song, first time I hear it. So for me, it was the shows, the cartoons, the movies. It was all that kind of stuff for me. And it wasn't until the MCU film started coming out and he started making his, cameos through the shows and the movies that I had always heard of Stan Lee, but I had never put the face with the name until that started happening.
Jake, I had a quick little short chat with a Scotch trooper actually earlier today, and he brought this up, and I'm surprised you guys hadn't brought it up, especially Matt and Jake, you guys, because he said something about Mallrats, the cameo.
Oh yeah,
with Stan Lee and Mallrat being in that being his favorite Stan Lee cameo, and he said that's when he really figured out who Stan Lee was. I
knew that, but I didn't really put at that time. I didn't really put it. I don't know why I didn't really put it together,
because that was his first real
Incredible Hulk.
I think popular film appearance. But this is pre-MCU.
Yeah, see, even
films.
Incredible Hulk, Incredible Hulk, and X-Men.
I was 11 when that movie came out, so I saw it way later.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I already seen the face and knew who he was.
Yeah, so that's a different for their age group.
Yeah, totally. I guess it's still a bit.
Totally different. Yeah, that would have been
But being that Kevin Smith is a huge comic book fan, and he has so many homages to comics and all that stuff in his films. It kind of made me just want to go back and rewatch that movie again just to see that scene with Stan Lee again. That was
there's
awesome.
There's a great, and I'll post it in our Facebook group. There's a great video someone did of all of the best Stan Lee I just lost my words. Cameos.
Yeah.
Ever, and it's fantastic. And he was, first of all, his cameos, he was asked to do those. They felt that he was a funny guy, and that he was kind of handing over his creations, and they thought it would just be funny to have him in there.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't really him trying to promote himself, although there's nothing wrong with that. That's your, that's your shit. But
that was actually something, the shameless self-promotion thing, that was something I read in an article that he actually said in his autobiography.
well, yeah, but they asked him. They said, people want to see you, and he had been asked to make cameos in movies way before he started making cameos in the Marvel Universe movies. So I don't know. I just don't see it that way, but it's just a different perspective. I just want to read one thing that this is a direct quote from him that I feel like right now more than ever is really important, and I hope that beyond anything, the things that I hope are his lasting legacy is that, I hope equality and diversity one day become a thing that doesn't have to be discussed. I hope we can all just see each other as fellow human beings one day. But until then, this quote resonates with me. Quote, bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today. But unlike a team of costume supervillains, they can't be halted with a punch in the snoot or a zap from a ray gun. The only way to destroy them is to expose them and to reveal them for the insidious evils they really are. End quote.
Yeah, I think I didn't mention that point, that was always one of the things that I really loved about the way that he promoted equality throughout all of his characters, was that in the comic universe, it's a meritocracy. Everybody got to where they got because of what they brought, because of their quality of character, because their own personal strength. I mean, everybody came from a different background and everything else, but you got to be the superhero because of your merit, not because of anything else. Everything else was irrelevant. It was absolutely a meritocracy. And I love that those comics promoted that thought.
For sure. And also that it was discussed, this person, the mutants, were looked upon with a racist view by other people, you dirty, disgusting mutants. And that was so important. I think it's a great way to teach children about diversity and equality and racism and all of that, and these supreme leaders that are trying to rule the world or whatever, I think it's such a great way to teach young people about that. It's a fantastic avenue for that type of learning. And I'm so thankful that he was able to do that.
Yep.
Agreed.
He will be missed.
Yes,
That's for sure.
Very much.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we've got his works in
That's right.
print and in film, and
Yep.
Those kind of things, will never die. So
Exactly. Yep.
He'll live on through his art.
I think it's just, when for me, when icons, people that are iconic to me, when they pass away, it's a bit of a reminder of my own mortality, of human mortality. And I think that sometimes is what brings upon the sadness is, oh, that's right. Nobody lives forever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially someone who created superheroes, so I think that's another part of why, why it resonates with people, and why it makes them sad. And for me, why there's been some celebrities that have passed, and it's hit me hard, because not only did I value their art and their contribution to society, but it's just a little reminder of our own mortality.
Yeah. And here's hoping we get at least one more Stan Lee cameo, because
I was talking about that with my daughter today.
Captain Marvel, I think, is done filming.
So
hopefully we get one in March when that gets released. So
when I picked my daughter up from school, this is something that her and I are just huge Marvel fans, and it's something that we've done together. I mean, really, since she could understand a movie, we've been watching through all of the Marvel movies together. and it's kind of our thing. We go to Disney every year and we watch. They do a big release when we're there, and so we will watch one of the films at the theater. And so when I picked her up from school today, I told her, I said, hey, Stan, and she knows who Stan Lee is because I pointed out, the cameos, and I said, Stan Lee passed away today, and she goes, oh, I wonder if and this is a 7-year-old, mind you. She said, I wonder if the films that have already gotten done making that haven't come out yet, if he's going to be in any of those ones.
Mm.
And I was like, oh. She goes, and then she goes, so what are your favorite cameos? She goes, my favorite is the Infinity War. We should watch that when we get home. So we did.
Aww. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Want to go around the table? What's your favorite Marvel character?
Whew. Oh, well, I have to say Wonder Woman. I mean, it's just there's no question.
Wonder Woman. DC.
Marvel character. You're going to have the wrath of the internet nerds coming down on you.
Oh, no.
I have to say Wonder Woman is my favorite superhero character. You didn't let me finish. Because if I have to choose a Marvel character, I am not choosing a female Marvel character. So before my fellow ladies come at my door with swords and sticks.
Well, it shouldn't matter if it's a male or a female.
Things to beat me. No, it matters for sure. It matters. It matters to me as a woman. It absolutely matters. Spider-Man, just Spider-Man. I mean, it's Spider-Man. There's no question. It's always been Spider-Man. But he's not my favorite superhero.
Well, that wasn't my question. My question was your favorite Marvel character.
I know, and I had to preface it for a reason. But everybody that knows me knows I'm a Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
It's always been Spider-Man for me too.
Yeah,
that's my number one guy.
Yep.
With Iron Man following a close second, I believe. But yeah,
Matt.
Well, I would say as a kid, Kid Matt would have to be either Captain America or the Silver Surfer. Adult. Transitioning into adulthood, I would say it's the Punisher. It's probably my favorite.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. What a choice. Interesting.
He hasn't gotten his due in film yet, as far as I'm concerned, because that movie that they came out with, I just wasn't crazy about. But I think his time will come. But he's my favorite right now.
Okay.
I just got a text message, by the way, from one of my girlfriends that's like, bitch, if you don't say Jessica Jones, I'm going to beat your ass when I see you. You see now? Yeah. See? I fucking told you. That's why I said, I prefaced it with Wonder Woman first. And she's like, you're going to get your ass kicked. Because I'm like, no. Like, either way, I'm going to get my ass kicked, apparently. So there you have it.
Well, my favorites would be Wolverine and Thor. Those are my two favorites. Wolverine was always like I said, X-Men was my thing growing up. That was I loved everything to do with X-Men and still do. Even some of the bad ones. I still love them. But
the X-Men was a rough one. That was a rough one.
It was my favorite show on TV. It was my favorite arcade game. I mean, and I always wanted to be Wolverine. Always. And
Wolverine is a cool as fuck character. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, Wolverine's cool as shit. I mean, Thor. I love Thor and Captain America and Iron Man, but Spider-Man will always be number one for me.
So Sailor, do you remember the live-action Spider-Man series that used to be on?
And he hated it, by the way.
70s?
Yes, of course. The Amazing Spider-Man. I fucking loved it. I didn't know any better. I'm tiny. What was that, 78 or something? It was 76 or 79. Yeah. So I was like 6 or something like that. I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was great. But Stan Lee later on said although, when he talks about hating it, I felt like it was pretty on par with the other shows we were watching at the time, which was Wonder Woman.
Oh, sure. Incredible
The Hulk. Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
What else was
Yeah.
live action at the time?
No.
I mean, you had your Bionic Woman and your Million Dollar Man and your Charlie's Angels, and I felt like it was on par with all of those. But he said that he didn't think that they brought enough humor and humanity to the character. I mean, if you look at it now, it doesn't hold up, but fucking neither does Wonder Woman, neither does the Incredible Hulk. It's stupid as shit.
Awesome.
Like,
I just watched an episode of Wonder Woman the other day. That was pretty funny.
I know it's so bad, but I thought it was the shit.
They would show when she was standing around, her boots had heels on them, but when she was running,
they were flat.
She had no heels on her boots.
Yep. I remember my mom going to me. She caught, I'm watching it and she's like, my mom is a hippie and, the whole 60s thing. She's like, what the hell? It has to be all about sex. What the hell is this? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't get it as a little girl that her outfit was very revealing, especially for television at the time. It was basically the fucking Playboy bunny outfit made into an American flag,
Yeah, actually.
It was. I didn't get it, and she goes, unlike those Charlie's Angels girls, they're always wearing boots and long skirts. And my answer was,
Charlie's Angels all the time.
I go, she's from another planet, Mom.
Her skin is not temperature sensitive.
And then she saw me watching Spider-Man. She's like, this is much better. Like, all right, Mom. But the cartoon, the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon, that went on until the 80s, right, Ed, I think?
Well, the original one,
Spider-Man's,
I think was actually like late 60s, early 70s.
What?
I don't think, and
we were watching
reruns.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that. Well, that was on forever, I felt like.
Because there used to be like old Hulk cartoons too that were back in like the late 60s, early 70s or whatever that I would watch. And also Iron Man. There used to be an Iron Man cartoon back then too.
I don't remember
that.
But
those were probably before your time, because I was getting back really young. I was probably 5 or 6 years old when those were on, so you were just a baby.
What was the original? What was it called? The original? Oh, 1981. It ended in 81. Right? I think it ended in 81. No, it was the late 70s, the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
May of 79. This one. Can you see that?
Matt and I are sitting here like we didn't even get started until at least 82.
Oh, I don't recognize that logo. As far as the cartoon.
I'm like, is that the one with Toby?
Anyway.
Oh God, I couldn't stand him. It's
Tobey Maguire.
Oh, come on now.
He will always be my Spider-Man.
That's
no way around it. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I
do like the current Spider-Man though.
Tom Holland is very good.
Looks like a high school kid.
Yeah. I have to say I was really scared. I'm like, again, we're doing this. It's just like the Batman. Like, fucking give it up already. Stop with the goddamn Batmans, please. I'm so fucking sick of it.
I kind of like that they were all different though, because is what got really annoying with the Batmans and with when they first were changing over the Spider-Mans is that they felt that they need to like redo the origin story every time, and it was like just let it be a different rendition. Like with the Batman, some of them are cheeky and some of them are dark, and they can appeal to different audiences. But I like that with the newest Spider-Man, they didn't go back and redo the origin story. It's like, they actually joke about it in the movie. Like,
yes, yes, exactly.
I like that that Marvel is doing that. They're poking fun at themselves a lot in the movies, more and more lately. I really enjoy it.
I totally agree. Yeah, I was very, very worried about. I mean, because Spider-Man's my favorite, and everyone was said to me, no, it's okay, you can watch it, you're not gonna hate it. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, yes, and it takes me a minute every time for me to feel like, is it my Spider-Man, and I'm pretty happy with what they did with him recently.
Yeah, I think a lot of the recent one, what makes it so great is his foil relationship with Tony Stark, because
Yes.
Stark's in Homecoming and even in Infinity War they have a lot of dialogue, and you have the father-son kind of figure there, and I think that they play off each other really well, and it makes it even more funny, because Robert Downey Jr. is like, who the fuck is this kid? It's just it's so good. It's so good.
Well, they actually that they introduced him into the MCU through Civil War, not even through the Spider-Man movie.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So it almost gave them license to not have to do an origin story in Homecoming. They were able to just kind of pick it up. They flash back in Homecoming. They flash back into into Civil War, but then just keep moving forward. And I like that a lot.
Yes, I totally agree with you. It was smart. If that was planned that way, it was brilliant.
Yeah. I like how there has not, at least in my opinion, and maybe I'm missing one, but I really feel like they haven't made a bad Marvel or a bad MCU movie yet. I feel like they've all done justice to the characters.
I agree with you.
Yeah, because I mean,
totally.
DC, there's been duds.
Shit the bed so many times.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really
of Wonder Woman, they shit the bed with Wonder Woman big time.
Really? I really like that.
No, they
on the contrary, I thought that was a fantastic
Wonder Woman.
movie.
I thought it was awesome. The new one.
Zeus, the choice for Zeus. Are you fucking kidding me right now? That was fucking terrible. And they didn't stay. Ugh, please. We could go on about that. We're not talking about DC tonight.
Oh, it's not terrible. I don't understand.
I hated it with a passion. Nope.
Oh, and Sailor, just to get back to you. The series I'm thinking about, I just looked it up. It was 3 seasons from 67 to 70 is actually when it ran. So I don't know what
cartoon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
But
I have no idea.
We'll have to converse later about this.
I mean, we had 4 channels and you watched what you watched, right?
I remember it was on, was it in Chicago? It was channel 44.
I don't know what channel it would have been. Wasn't it on one of the, it was on the ABC, CBS, whatever the fuck shit at the time. NBC.
Yeah, it says it's an ABC series.
Yeah, you had 4 channels when you were growing up. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS. That was the end.
How ironic, Ed, that it was on ABC, which is now owned by Disney, as is Marvel.
Uh-huh.
Whoa.
Oh, interesting. All right, guys. Well, that is the news for this week. Unfortunately, it was kind of sad news, but
hopefully we bring you good news. Hopefully we'll bring you good, funny news next week.
Yes, let's have just.
It's been a downer.
Damn, has it been a downer?
We need some upbeat news.
Yes,
I think we've had a good time remembering, an important man's life.
Sure,
for sure. But
we celebrated today more than we mourned.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah. Absolutely, right. But I would like for us to celebrate something happier next time. Something much happier. That's just me.
I love this conversation. This is one of my favorite things to talk about is Marvel. So
yeah, we could really go on for a full episode.
This is what I was going to suggest, you guys. What I would really like to do, especially now, as an MRW tribute to Stan Lee, I would love for us to do a full show on the Marvel Universe, and I would like for all of us to kind of, as we just picked our favorite characters, pair a whiskey with it, talk about some of the music that's been, especially in the new movies. I was going to say
the music.
The music
very
is
prevalent.
Yes, so that's what I suggest we do as our tribute. We do a show like that.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
I think that might tie into why I love Thor so much, is that they always seem to play immigrant song.
I know
every single Thor.
I know,
and it's like that song is always giving me chills as it is, and then it's always like right when he's about to just kick ass. It's just immigrant song.
Yes. Like, well, that's my favorite Zeppelin song, So when I first heard that, I was like, "Shut the fuck up! Oh my god, I gotta see this movie now." Yeah.
Anyway, but gotta save this for that discussion.
Yes. All right.
Put a bow on.
Good night, everyone.
All right, bye.
This has been the news.
Okay, bye.
We'll see. Do we want to announce what's coming up Wednesday?
No.
Nope. Okay. Have a good week. See you
later.
Excelsior.
Excelsior!
Yes.
All right. Stop recording.
Are we still? Can you make us not live?
Yeah, we're still. All right. All right. We're stopping.
Has everyone seen Ant-Man and the